All right. All right, people, what's good? Hope everybody's well. Happy Mother's Day to any of the mothers that may be listening. Hope you brothers, most particularly, are doing well. Y'all know what it is. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. And, shout out to Dardar. Appreciate that cash app. Wanted to, drop a little something that coincidentally, I guess, relates to Mother's Day. That wasn't the purpose, but it is what it is. So I appreciate you taking the time out to watch. And if you're catching this on the replay, it's all good. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show if you would, so we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. Because what we're doing is we're actually developing concepts that can be used if we decide to use them to our benefit in the courtroom, in terms of policy development. All of that can happen. It's just a matter of what we choose to invoke. So I offer some things to think about that we might be able to operationalize. But for those that are just coming in, shout out to Quiz the Poet. Came in, dropped a word first. I think he said he's got to catch it on the replay, but appreciate the support. What's up, Christopher, Corey, Kiel, brother Artisan? Man, I don't know. I hope you're still here, but I really, really wanted to. You dropped a story about what's going on with a few things earlier today. You talked about it in your show. I would love to, even if you had 5 minutes, pop up and retell it. So let me know if that's something you'd consider, because it definitely goes with the topic. Shout out to Donnie, Social English, Aaron, CR Frank, A. LaRoe, Raheem, Dardar, of course. Very little. Appreciate that support. Salute to the Onyx Brotherhood, Sunday Tuition, much appreciated. Davion, Anoon, we got a few people in here. Ray, what's up? Here, I'm gonna drop this link for Artisan. So not gonna be in here too long because we got some family festivities jumping off as well. But I definitely wanted to get something in on this. And of course, I'm not alone. I'm gonna bring a good brother in here in a moment. But before I do, I just kind of wanted to get a few things on the table. So first and foremost, make sure you support the show. Y'all know the deal. You can hit the Venmo, the PayPal, the Cash App, of course, the Patreon. And if you become a patron, you can support the Onyx Report. You can also support the Institute for Black Male Studies and Onyx Network Television. So you can support all three of those by becoming a patron. So please consider doing that. And there it is, the Onyx Network. So make sure you support media for thinking Black men, right? So here's the deal. In the last show, or last couple shows, I brought in a gentleman who I'd had on before, and he talked about his own issues with his baby's mother, trying to secure access to her, custody, the whole deal. And he's been in and out of court. And one of the concepts he dropped, and in the course of that discussion, was litigation abuse. Now, of course, I viewed, the way some people use the courts, particularly against men, in some kind of way, but I had never actually thought about the concept, right? And so when he started to talk about it, I realized this is something we needed to delve into. So the last show I did, I had BGS, I had GG, and we came up and we talked about litigation abuse itself, right? We talked about it, and you can see the definition we used here. The top paragraph being that which came directly from a website. Now, the website was actually a website for women's access to legal protection, right? So it's a feminist use of the concept, because the concept itself is generally described in relation to a vulnerable woman being exploited by a man in court after it's perceived that, or assumed that, he's abused her in another manner, right? Usually a physical form of abuse, which is followed up with him dragging her into court. And this is the conventional kind of definition of the concept of litigation abuse. What I added to it toward the end, you can see there, is the way in which these courts, criminal and family, can be weaponized against Black men by filing false charges and then attaching legal fees that most of the time he's responsible for. What I want to submit to you all tonight is that we actually take it a step further, right? We take it a step further. What I want us to consider is what I consider judicial exploitation, right? Shout out to Michael Womack for the Cash App, much appreciated. And what do I mean by judicial exploitation? Well, here's the thing. When you use the term abuse, we generally think of one person doing something to another person. But the problem with how courts, are used, and really this goes into law enforcement in general, but at this point we're talking about the judicial aspect of our lives. The way this is generally weaponized against men is something that's passed down generationally, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you have witnessed younger girls and women learning from elder women how to take men to court, how to take them to court for divorce, how to take them to court over child custody. Have you heard women giving other women advice on what kinds of false charges to use to secure some kind of outcome in terms of a court hearing? And we know, especially when it pertains to family court, that much of the time the results tend to yield to her favor, right? Most men don't get child custody. And even if you get 50-50 custody, I can tell you story after story of men who haven't seen their kids in multiple years, despite what the judge has ruled. So look at all the ones, Lewis, Raheem, A. LaRoe, Metacog, Mr. Anderson, Indigo, Blade Runner, Samuel. See, this is not something we're imagining. And see, this is why I'm saying the concept had to be evolved past, just one-on-one abuse. And we actually have to talk about the systemic nature of how courts are used, because when you add in the family courts incentivize, and we're going to get into this later, incentivize, a kind of role in lobbying on women's behalf, right? We're going to talk about that, but we need to also marry it to what we've seen in the Black community in regard, right, to this passing down of this approach to court, this culture of using court as a control mechanism, and sometimes purely as an engine for vindication, or not vindication, but vindictiveness, excuse me, right? The ability to use the courts as an engine or a vehicle for, being vindictive and attacking men for a whole variety of reasons, right? Some of which can simply come down to not meeting her fantasies, right? Not meeting up to her desires for you, right? And this is particularly interesting when you're talking about girls who may have been thinking about marriage since childhood, and boys that we generally don't think about shit till it's right up on us, right? So here you have the possibility of failing expectations that she's had her entire life, right? And the fact that she can and is often willing, especially when frustrated, to use these institutions against you. All of this needs to be brought into the discussion. What's available systemically, what's going on culturally, and in terms of the value system within Black families, and how those things can often be married in many ways to undermine and underdevelop Black men. So in this definition, as you can see, I talk about it as, I'll pull it up entirely, the systemic weaponization of family and or criminal courts against Black men. And I put Black in parentheses because much of this applies to men in general. But y'all know this channel advocates for Black men, so that's the focus. It includes, but isn't limited to, false accusations of paternity, false accusations of abuse, false accusations of violence, false accusations of criminality, false accusations of child abuse, false accusations of rape or sex abuse, false accusations of sexual harassment, and various types of false claims to secure child custody, emotionally weaponize children, and often vindictively use the courts to exact revenge, especially for perceived slights. They don't actually have to be real slights, they just have to be in her head, and that's enough. Because many of the charges that work against men don't even require evidence, and they don't even require that she submit her name or be revealed to the public. Such cases usually end with judges leaving him with her legal fees, which incentivizes, women to be hyper litigious. This process weaponizes not only the courts against men, but men's natural impulse to desire family against them. In other words, it weaponizes your desire to have a family against you, when you and I both know that these courts can be levied at any point. It's almost like a button she can press or a lever she can pull at any time she's not happy, which can find you going through hell afterwards and being separated from your children. And she has a whole playbook, right? I've even had attorneys reach out to me on how they've seen other attorneys basically let her know how to falsely accuse men of child molestation as a method for securing custody, right? These are all tried and true methods that we've seen play out in the Black community since the 1960s and 70s, right? And there's been no point where Black men in particular, or men in general, have organized in such fashion to operate against these practices. And I'm submitting to you that one of the first ways we do that is getting on the same page about how we address these issues. So let me go ahead and bring up my guests. Like I said, we're not going to be here long tonight, but I had to get these two brothers in, and I'll put their names up because I want you to also support both of their channels. So welcome to Deadset Anime and Brother Artisan MC. Hope y'all are well.
Hey, any day I'm on with Artisan, it's a good day.
Oh, I got the deep voice man in here today too.
Like,
what's going on? Excuse me. What's going on, Deadset? What's going on?
Not much.
told him I wanted that damn voice, man. That's what he got.
Right?
Yeah.
Came on
But
with
look here,
smooth baritone. Like, goddamn.
you know. Now I don't know your schedule because I know Artisan, you just got off. And you were just willing to pop in at short notice, and I appreciate that. What I want to do is I want to get, of course, stories from both of you, but I wanted to get Artisan to kind of quickly tell us a story he dropped earlier on his show, if he wouldn't mind. And then I want to get into Deadset for the majority of the interview, but I had to get the brother on when he dropped the story. But if you wouldn't mind, man, tell us a little bit about what you were talking about earlier today, in terms of, what you've been through in regard to these courts, what you've seen, what you've had baby mothers do. Please talk about that.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to figure out exactly which story because I told a couple of them. Just a brief overview of what I've been through with the court process and now being, I believe, done with that stuff.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I had my son's mother actually quit her job when she was ready to go to court. She quit her job so she didn't have an income. So when she walked into court with that song and dance about being a single mother of 2 children, it played really differently against me, who had just reached journeyman status and had a wife and a new baby. It worked way different. That calculation, that math went way up in her favor. And leaving that courtroom and getting outside the courthouse, she was laughing and giggling with her friends, telling me to have a good day because she got way over. She got way over. That was one. The other one was getting those child support papers in the mail when I brought home my daughter from the hospital the day after she was born. I got those papers in the mail, and it was done only because from her own mouth, when I asked her about it, she said she did it because she didn't want her son to go without. And her son wasn't going without shit because for 5-6 years, I was paying her without having to go to court. I already knew how it worked because of my mother. So I already knew I needed to fund this child if I wasn't going to be there with this woman. So from the time he was born, she was already getting paid. It just wasn't enough for her because I was still getting to travel and have another woman and stuff like that. She didn't like that at all. She didn't like that. So she sat about.
So it was vindictive.
It was vindictive. That's why I've always called child support punishment money. That's all it is. It's extortion. It's legalized extortion and punishment money. And one of the ways it's legalized extortion is when it was supposed to be over for my son. What I found out after the fact was that this woman had been claiming services in one county for a while. I didn't know anything about it. Claiming to that department that she wasn't getting anything from me. Claiming she wasn't. And when he was supposed to be 18 and done, they stuck me with a bill for what they had paid her. And I had to pay that shit back to the government. So that's why from 18, when my son wasn't even staying with her anymore, from 18 up till now, my son is about to be 30 this year, I was still paying child support. I was paying what she had gotten. I was paying it back. I had to pay it back. Lost my license, had different jobs and different things happen related to that, tangentially related to that, but it was a fucked up situation for a long time and dealt with a lot of disrespect over it. Dealt with a lot of disrespect over it, but it is what the hell it is. You charge it to the game in that sense. But that was what she did, and it's not like, I'm saying it's just to disparage her. It's what she did. It was out there for the taking. Like I said, what can you expect of an opportunist to do when an opportunity presents itself? If the opportunity wasn't there to screw over a man like that, she probably wouldn't have did it. She wouldn't have had the nuts to, or the ovaries, I should say. But because it was there, she had friends deciding what was going to happen for my life based on getting one semen from me. She played it out. She played it out. It wasn't nothing to stop her. The only person to stop her was me and my ability to go to court with whatever money I had left from what they was already taking. So,
and this is one of the things I was talking with Deadset before we got on, and I was saying to him earlier, part of this in the Black community is we accept this because it's what we grew up seeing. especially Gen X and younger. We grew up seeing this. So it's not a surprising thing. We damn near expect it, but we don't respond to it, the way others might, where they inherently see the injustice in it and move to respond. We've been conditioned to accept this as a norm in many respects. When you tell a brother that you in court over child support, nobody blinks. Nobody's surprised. No. It's like, okay, you too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've told this story before. I have a stepfather who recently passed away a couple months ago. He's in his 70s. He's still paying arrears, or he was until he died. He was still paying arrears for child support for my stepbrother, who is a month younger than me. So he's 48. Still paying child support, back for that. Now, the other piece to that is that my stepbrother's mother, like the baby mom in question, she died in the early 90s. So he's paying in his 70s with cancer to his deathbed child support back to the state, even though my brother's damn near 50 years old and his mother passed away decades ago.
Yeah.
And that's nobody sees a problem with this.
Yeah, that's the funny part about it, Dr. T. Was the part that I didn't mention is that whatever the person is paying, it's not going to the other person. Like in your situation, it's not even going to the mother. She can dead and gone. So where's the money going? It's going to that department. That's where it's going. They get the majority of that money.
Yeah.
They get the majority of it. So it's just, that's what makes it extortion. It's just extortion.
Well, like I said, man, I appreciate you dropping in. You are welcome to stay as long as you want, but because it was last minute, I didn't know how much you had on your plate. But I want to get Deadset in here because, amongst the brotherhood, you have been known for responding to this situation in a way most brothers don't. Right. But if you wouldn't mind, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what the situation you've gone through in regard to this has been and your thoughts about this entire process.
Yeah. Well, most people know that I do graphics online. I worked in logistics. Right now, I think I've already spoken to you about like my license being revoked. So how this all started was, of course, it started in divorce, end of marriage. Mm-hmm. And I had the advantage. If anybody here knows my story, they know that I had a post-nuptial agreement in place, and several agreements, formal agreements, that I would get the children. She changed her mind around August of that year. That was in 2020, and then she kidnapped my daughter from the house. I had a nanny here. My son and daughter were both living with me. And of course, if anybody can recall, that was the height of COVID. So there were no daycares open. You had to hire somebody to either come to your house for a while, or, I just had a full-time nanny who lived in my upstairs bedroom. So in order to turn the situation in her favor, she first kidnapped my daughter and then was trying to make me jump through hoops. Now, legally, it's not kidnapping because without a court order, you can't kidnap your own children. However, when you read Maryland Criminal Code 3-503, you will see that it says something completely different. Judges are reluctant to prosecute the mothers when it comes to that very issue. And then there's also the Anti-Parental Kidnapping Act, which is the federal act, that it states it in the title, Anti-Parental Kidnapping Act.
Right.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent people without a court order from taking the children in and running across state lines just to bend the advantages in their favor.
Well, so let me ask you this. If you took the kids and disappeared without her knowing, would that be considered parental kidnapping?
Yes.
Right.
And so it changes from state to state, but I know in Maryland, it doesn't. You can only do so under the color of right, basically. And color of right meaning you suspect abuse, and you can go ahead and do it that way. But where there's no color of right or where there's spite, no, that's illegal.
But are we seeing a gender practice at play where women are not being held accountable for parental kidnapping, but a father who does that would be held accountable?
Oh, absolutely. And in my case, I avoided the whole thing because I already knew that there were landmines there. So I didn't go over there and take them back. I just said, okay, I'll just get you in court.
Mhm.
But to finish off, what happened is we came to a tentative agreement in December of that year because I wanted my children to be together and I had to fire my nanny. So what I did was she would get the kids during the week until I found new childcare, which I did in like 3 weeks. And she brought them back to me on Thursday, and I kept them through Sunday. Once I found new childcare, I was coming for my children.
Mm.
And we had an argument on my front step, and it was like we didn't get physical, but it was a big one.
Yeah.
And so I basically retreated into the house because I was like, I don't want to deal with this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I came for my children on the following Thursday, they were nowhere to be found. I've been trying to call, and I was like, what the heck is going on? On the 19th of that month, I got a call from CPS stating that I was being accused of sexually molesting my daughter.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So
what evidence was required?
the evidence was required is that the child had to go to the hospital and take the examination. And there had to be compelling evidence because up to that point, Maryland was following its own constitution. For people who don't know, the Supreme Court put a very high bar on removing children from parents. Even though we have parents patriae, it's still a constitutionally protected activity. So you can go all the way back to the 1500s and look up that case law, because there are thousands upon thousands of cases that reinforce the fact that fathers have access to their children. But anyway, the CPS investigated.
Okay.
And there was a court case. I'm going to skip a lot of the details, but it was ruled out. It was just like, this just didn't happen. They had the medical records. They had my daughter's testimony. They had all of this stuff. And then there was a judge who issued the temporary order protection, TOR. She adjudicated over the case, and she yelled at my ex-wife. Then my wife, she yelled at her. It's like, what is wrong with you? You don't do it like this. Fast forward to May 13th, 2021. The judge that I had on that day decided unilaterally, with the evidence sitting in front of him, that I did it. And I lost my children that day.
Wow.
So
regardless of the evidence.
And so what he could not do is he could not take my children completely away from me because there was evidence on the table. So what he did was he did the most extreme thing. He hit me with this incredible amount of child support on 2 children now. My wife, my ex, and I, we make the same amount of money. I'm stuck paying $27,000 a year in child support. On top of that, I lost legal and physical custody. So I was relegated to 2 days a week. Now, I warned the judge during that hearing that she's going to do this again, because I say, look, she's doing this out of spite. I let them know that the evidence was right there. And this whole thing about me, opting out of childcare, I was like, wait a minute. I was the one who was still paying for the nanny. I was paying for everything. Fast forward to October of that very year, she files charges against me again. The second time. Now, this time she had inculcated my child to say something against me. I don't know what it was, but she did say something. And now I went into a fight with an indicated. And then here's the kicker, though. This is why brothers have to fight. Because surrounding that second accusation, she had gotten into it with my mother on her front step. And she was nasty, almost assaulting my mother on her front step. My mother's in her 70s. So she had a settlement there. They went to court over that. I had also filed contempt in September of that year. So she had both of these things, nailing her down. She was afraid she was going to lose those children.
Right.
Because when she did, it's not even a confrontation. When she did attack my mother on her front step, the children were watching. And I was at the house. So I recorded the whole thing. I took my phone out. I said, yeah, we're going to get this. So what she did to counter that was she, of course, accused me of 2 charges. Here's the interesting thing about those charges. She stated that my daughter was doing something to another girl at her home. And then instead of calling it a new charge, what she did was she charged it back to the old one that had already been ruled out. So if anybody, to fast forward all the way back, just to wrap this up, we went through years of dealing with this. Mind you, I'm not seeing my children at all. I'm not talking to them.
Right.
None of that stuff. Finally, in January of this year, she got called out for contempt. She was found guilty of willful contempt. Yep. So that disposition hearing is on the 22nd of this month. On top of that, the hearing that I had on May 2nd and the 3rd of this year, the judge called out everybody. She looked at the record and she was like, none of this makes any sense. How is it that you're going to make new accusations on this man who had already been ruled out on a crime that was ruled out, and he lived a state away, and this event happened in your house under your watch? So that pretty much sums it up without getting too much into the details.
So when we talk about, and I know you guys are telling me I have some feedback, I've tried adjusting some things. I don't know where it's coming from, so I apologize. But when we talk about, this notion of the systemic use of courts against men, against fathers, what are your thoughts about that, having gone through what you've been through?
Here's what I'm learning. And I talked about this on your show last week. What I did not know was the depths of how systemic this was and how it permeates through every agency in that echelon, from the DHS down to the DSS to the court systems. It's to the police departments.
Yes.
You are facing an army of people. And one of the things that I did was I went and got records. So, and I want to really focus on this part. You don't know what the DSS or CPS has on you until you request those records. Because what it said in my record was that I was having intercourse with my daughter. That's what it said.
Wow.
You cannot make that up. And that was one of the reasons why the judge went in on the child custody evaluator, because she was like, wait a minute, you need to define what intercourse means, because intercourse means penetration. You got a grown man and a 16-year-old girl and basically what amounts to, a 6-year-old girl, and basically what amounts to a SANE exam is when the sexual assault nurse comes in and does her evaluation. All of this evidence, a mountain of it, including court cases that are saying that this never happened. It was impossible. Even the dates were wrong, because at the time that the judge stated that this event was supposed to have magically taken place was during the time in which my daughter had been kidnapped by my ex. And it was just like, wait a minute, during that entire time, I did not even have that child. So had I not found out that it said that, I would not have known how to defend that, because when she was actually a magistrate, when the magistrate read that in the report, she said, this doesn't make any sense at all. How in the world can you even say that a man had intercourse with a 6-year-old and it left no marks? That's how insidious it is. But most men who get caught up in this and decide not to fight, they never know what's written in those records, because that could be used against me. In Maryland, sexual assault has no statute of limitations. So that could come back and haunt me 30 years from now.
Man.
Can you get that shit expunged? I mean, is there a way for you to get it expunged after all this is resolved?
There should be a way. Well, there's a key piece of evidence here. I mean, key issue here. One of the issues at play is double jeopardy. There's a reason why I can't use double jeopardy, because what a lot of people don't know about is that these cases are not actually criminal and they're not actually civil. They're quasi-criminal.
Yeah.
Yep. And so therefore, some of the things that would be available, like if this was a criminal case, I would have taken this to a jury and had this thrown out. But because it's quasi-criminal, things such as double jeopardy don't apply to me. And when I brought that up to the judge is like, no double jeopardy in a civil case. Yeah. But it is res judicata because another Article 3 judge had already ruled on it. So we have to deal with, number one, the procedures. We have to deal with definitions. We have to know, this is the importance of having a lawyer or having studied this stuff. You have to know what to say, when to say it, and how to defend what you say with evidence, because even the evidence that I presented, part of that got thrown out.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard. I would just say this, not to cut you off, Dr. T, but I'll just say this. One of my homeboys at the time, the same one I was telling you about earlier, about needed a punch in the face, even to this day. He went down on he kind of went down on the same shit. Mm-hmm. That when his relationship was really strong with his daughter, and his daughter started smelling herself a little bit, and the mother was kind of not liking him, that kind of accusation came up. Mm-hmm. And it was messing with him seriously. He was the one who said he walked away from his kid. Like, you can come figure it out later. You can come figure it out for me later on. Because if you would ride with your mother on doing some BS like that to me, I'll talk to you when you're grown. He walked away. He was not about to deal with that at all. Because it was the same kind of BS. I'm like, unbelievable, dude. Why would you? Like, come on, man.
But you know what, Artisan? That's the thing that I'm facing right now. I was actually thinking about that today. I was thinking I may have to walk away from them.
Mm-hmm. I thought about that with my son. I thought about that with my son.
Well, and here's the thing. You know, again, we're Gen X, right? Mm-hmm. Our generation, especially as it relates to hip hop, we talked about the absence of our fathers and how pissed we were about that, and but the question to ask is, if this shit has been going on since the 60s, at least, how many of our fathers went through this on for its time, right?
Exactly.
Right.
We're going through this now. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's exactly what made me give my father some grace. That's why I say talk to your father. That's what made me give him some grace, because I had to look at it in context. What I was going through was not that far removed from my father in his time. Only 15 years younger than my mother, right? So what was going on about 15 years before then? Just in the 60s? Mm-hmm. The same kind of stuff? Where is he now? What was he doing? Who was my mother? How does she behave? Have I seen her behaving? It's like, it could have been the same shit. Could have been. Just thought you wasn't good enough or whatever. Like, come on, man.
We talk about it today as a playbook being ran against us, but can you imagine in the 60s and 70s, you didn't see this with your father. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden this thing is happening, and there's no frame of reference for how to deal with it. Now, I'm not saying that fathers shouldn't be held accountable and there's no such thing as deadbeat father. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we might need to reconsider how we've interpreted past generations of men who may have gone through something similar. And that needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. The other thing we need to consider, and I've said this before, is, especially if you don't have a relationship with your father, if you haven't sat down to talk to him, you may find that he has a box of receipts you don't know about. Exactly. In other words, he may have actually been far more involved than you were told. Yep. But again, you were only given one part of the story. But go ahead.
Here's a I want to add something else too, because you spoke about lawyers' fees,
Yeah.
and abusive litigation. When I found out just in my research last night that lawyers' fees were specifically there to curtail abusive litigation,
Mm-hmm.
and come to find out that, okay, it's not curtailing anything. It's just like, oh, I can get him to pay for my lawyer too.
Mhm.
Oh, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it. As
Yeah,
long as I never have to pay for it, it's not an issue for them.
Well, and
exactly.
think about it too. If you grow up hearing about what you should do if you ever have to go to court, what you can get out of him, what is what is your emotional relationship to the very idea of taking someone to court versus growing up as a male where you've only seen men taken to court, right? You've only heard those kind of stories. What is that going to engender in men, particularly black men, about the very idea of having to go to court? So I'm saying there's a comfort, that's tied in many ways with how women even interpret court. They don't see it as a place where they may lose everything. They see it as a place that they can push the button on and for the most part get their way. That's not how we're engendered to see court. See, I understand when you say why somebody might walk away. You know what I mean? Whether I can't afford it or whether I just don't know how to deal with this institution. And all I know is every time I go, I'm in trouble. Even when I have evidence, you still find that your evidence might be dismissed. That in and of itself. I talk about, black women having access to education and certain types of employment, so on and so forth. Welfare resources on the poor end, education on the middle class end. But what we haven't talked about as well is this access to court. And I mean family and criminal court. And the way that both institutions respond to black men, you know what I mean? From the stereotypes about us to whatever, all of that plays out very different for us. So we don't grow up with a comfort in the idea of judicial justice or whatever. That's not where we come from. You
But that's one of the things I wanted to
go ahead.
That's one of the things I wanted to, I don't have the phrasing for it. I've read the 17 points.
Agenda, the black male political
Yes,
agenda.
I read the 17-point agenda, but the education part has to be in there somewhere because it's not something that can it can institutionally be done, but it will have to be done for everyone. But for men in general, it's a political point for us alone. Because one of the things that I've my ignorance of the law it's been falling away for the past 2 years.
Right.
And come to find out I actually like the law. That was the second thing. I mean, imagine had I been exposed to this when I was, I don't know, a teenager. I'd have been looking at, hey man, law looks good. But that wasn't where my parents were. They just didn't know about these things. So one of my goals was to make sure that my children knew, especially my son knew, by the time he graduates high school, brother, you're gonna have some law education.
Yeah, you're going to law school. If for nothing else, to learn how to protect yourself.
Yes, sir.
No, I could say the same thing, Deadset. I mean, the reason I think that your parents may not have known about all this to educate you because it wasn't an issue for them like that. It wasn't.
Exactly.
This was something that came in with us or right before us. That's why we're the ones getting hit the hardest with this stuff and all the extra laws thrown on top of it, because this is some framework that they were setting up and then the train just got rolling during Generation X. That was it. So a lot of this stuff, like you, I had to get some legal education, at least a little bit. That's why some of my friends is freaking lawyers for that reason, for this reason. It's like, you need to know what's going on here. And one of the things I tell brothers is look, don't be afraid, even with everything that's out there about how you can get screwed over in court. Don't be afraid about going to court, because going to court can actually help you in some ways, because she's bound by the same BS. She's bound by the same stuff. And when I started using it like that with my son's mother, I got some damn results. So when she was playing in games and didn't want to return my son when he was supposed to be here, and I called the sheriff's department and they went after her ass, that's thanks to that child support. You're welcome. Thank you. Go get my kid. He's supposed to be here. She knows she's supposed to drop him off. I talked to her. She said she wasn't doing it. Court ordered. I need my son delivered. ASAP Rocky. They got on it. And when she was in court trying to explain to the judge why she didn't bring him back. Not to me. She didn't have to explain that shit to me. Explain it to the judge because these his orders.
Mm.
You're telling him to kiss your ass. You ain't telling me. You telling him. So talk to that white man. Tell him why he should be kissing your big ass.
Damn, Artisan.
Man.
That's what it
I can tell
was.
you though, that contempt will get you straight. Because one thing that judges don't play with is you not following their orders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, right now, I got another court case on the 22nd. I got another one on the 25th.
Damn.
And on the one on the 22nd is deciding whether my ex is going to go to jail or not.
Ooh.
Well, I won't say I'll have a banner up, but you let me know.
Wow.
We're gonna throw an after party.
Because it all depends on what they do with my children, though. Because I still got to fight the other charge.
Yeah, that's the BS in your situation. Like I said, I don't usually try to get into everybody's stuff unless they want to tell me personally. But that stuff you was going through, that is like the brothers were saying in the chat. That's some evil shit. And I thought I had saw a level of evil in women to understand that when they don't like your ass, what they actually do. Like I thought I had seen it. I'm glad I didn't roll down to your level of hell, homeboy. Because I probably would have been in jail. I probably would have.
I can't help but wonder how much of this evil is incentivized by the things we're talking about. You know what I mean? Because I don't hear this. The average brother that I hear about going through this is not coming up with all kinds of fantastical ways to blame her for violating the children's sex. I don't hear this from brothers.
No.
I think it's incentivized one way, but tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, you have to understand what her occupation is. She's a teacher. So she knows full well how to weaponize the system. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that the courts know that women do this. They, in fact, my judge said it on the stand when she was talking to my ex. She said, "You would not believe how common what you did is." And that's the reason why the first judge for the TOR, she got up. That's when I told you she got upset and started yelling at my ex about it. She's like, "What are you doing?" But the key thing here is that they both knew that she was doing it, but she was never prosecuted for it.
Exactly.
And that's my point, right? Even if it's common, the question is it enforced in regard to these judges? How is the legal system itself engaged this? But I want you to also talk a little bit about Title 4D. You and I were talking before the show, Deadset on kind of break that down and explain the relationship between that and how courts function.
Oh, yes. Interesting thing, because this goes to Artisan's point. When you get put on child support, you don't owe that child, nor do you owe the mother. You owe the state. It is a 3-party contract. That's the reason why if you are ever put on child support as an order from the bench, don't ever sign that order. Don't sign it. You are not obligated to sign that order, or you can sign that order and then, right in there, I only agree with this part. I just want to be divorced from her. Everything else, nope, I don't consent to it. You can write all of that stuff, but nobody tells you that.
Yeah,
you have to put it in plain English.
Yeah, I wasn't told that shit.
Yeah, nobody tells you that. It's sort of like when I was talking about earlier, like getting a job. You get a job, they say, well, we're going to pay you $35 an hour, like a W-2 job. That is only what they're offering you. You can go in there and haggle with them. And I've been haggling with with my employers for since 2010. It's like, you ain't gonna pay me $20 or $30 an hour.
And especially black men are never told that.
Right.
That's a negotiation. When you walk in there and they say we want to pay you $35 an hour, and you in there in the interview, well, what do you think about the $35 an hour? Think it's a little low. That's a negotiation. You can negotiate. You don't have to say, well, okay, I'll take that. No, because nobody else does it.
Just as courts, employment or business runs on contracts, the courts run on contracts too.
Yeah.
Child support is a contract, and the payments that you put forth is a debt. It says it right there in Title 4D. This is a debt.
That's why it shows up on your credit report.
Exactly.
That's why I'm happy. That's why I'm happy. It comes off.
And here's the real crazy part, because it states in the law that a debt must have an original bill. Child support doesn't have an original bill.
No.
There is no disclosure for it either. Now, they do have what's called posted disclosure, and that is legal. But while you don't anticipate this kind of thing is going to happen, like I have a mortgage. All of the disclosures from my mortgage came at the time of signing off on that mortgage. That's all those papers that you're signing. Yes, that's disclosure. Anybody who's bought a house knows this. You get caught with child support, there is zero disclosure outside of what you got to go online and find.
You know, to me,
they ain't telling you. Yeah.
What's cool about it to me is so my son is 17. He's getting ready to leave and move and go to college. And I can tell you from birth to 17, what it's cost me to raise him is negligible.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm telling you, literally, even feeding him, the grocery bill is the grocery bill. He literally eats what I don't buy a bunch extra because I have a child. I don't. I feed him out of what I would buy if I were by myself. I buy him clothes once a year, a couple $100. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that's different with girls, but for boys, a couple $100. There's really no crazy amount of money that I'm spending on a regular basis to take care of this child. So when I hear you guys telling me these stories, it blows me away, because I'm sitting here raising a child and I'm like, what did you pay? $2,200 a month? And no, I mean, my bills don't change when he leaves. Everything he's, everything I pay, I would have to pay anyway. Lights, electricity, you name it.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That was one of my complaints when my child support order went in from my son, because at that time my son's mother had another child, and then she wanted to go to court, and I'm like, why should I be paying for somebody else's kid? Because it don't take that much money to take care of my son. I know this. I'm not paying no babysitter. I ain't even working. And he don't eat fucking $500 worth of food a month. He'd be fat as hell. No, so that's not what it's going to. You can't tell me that and still tell me, well, he need new shoes and stuff like that. Why does he need new shoes when you just got half a whole check? When I wasn't making shit. Like, come on, man. No. That's your money to screw off with your girlfriends. That's all that is. That's why it doesn't take that much to do it. Why can a man do it and never turn around and ask the woman for child support? Why can he do it and not have to turn around and do that? Because the money, it doesn't actually take that much. And I know that from raising a kid. It doesn't actually take that much unless you putting them in private school and soccer, baseball, football. That's all incidentals. But what doesn't get talked about a lot of times with that support too is that if you go to court for support and they tell you this is how much you have to pay, that's it. You don't have to give her nothing else. No time of the day other than that payment. That's the only thing, because that's what she's signed off on. She's signing off on the fact that this much money is what you need a month to take care of this child. That means if I give you this amount of money, you don't get anything else. You don't get to call me for shoes, trips, Slurpees, McDonald's, none of that. Nothing. This is what you decided was enough. That's what you get. You don't get anything else.
Let me address Barnabas in the chat. He said I must be cheap. Look, I take my son to Burlington. You call it what you want to. I take him to Burlington Coat Factory. He get 15 shirts, 5 pair of pants, 3 pair of shorts, and I might get him a couple pair of shoes at the neighboring store, and that's a wrap. We good for the year.
You got a baby giant over there too. So
you know what I mean? And he's not, and I'm not in the brand names. I'm not. So his clothes match. He looks good. That's the end of it for me. I'm not going out to buy designer or anything. We just live it. But anyway,
he developed his personality then, didn't it?
Hey, man. Look, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that that I need to mention is that When it comes to when they assigned parentage to the child or who gets custody, what I've been finding, especially in this space, which I don't want to talk about this space too much, but there's a lot of dudes in the space who never went through the process or who just don't have children and don't understand that a lot of the traits that we're applying to women, for such as nurturing, such as an instinct as to how the child is feeling, things along those lines, men have these traits too.
We do.
And, once we start talking about them, I know some of the guys cringe at it, but every father knows that you've got a second sense about your child.
Yes, you do.
And so when those children are ripped away from you, those emotions get very powerful. I am not afraid to say that. I had a moment on the stand to whereas the court had to go into recess because I was looking at losing my children for a third time. And I told them, I can't take this issue.
Wow.
But what they don't know is what was going on in my head.
Wow.
That was like somebody about to die.
I know.
And on that note,
But at the same time, it's like our instincts to, number one, protect our children, to provide for our children, to do the things that we intrinsically do as men for our family without asking for any reward. It forces us, and you and I talked about this before the show, it insidiously forces us to act against our own nature. And that's the part that really takes it to us, because we're not cut out to be abandoning our children.
right.
We're like tribal leaders, and we like hierarchies. We're talking about an alpha male. We're talking about the alpha guy who is the head of all the males, and he is creating the greatest example that we are trying to follow.
But see, here's the thing too. The kind of brothers in this space that I'm interacting with, these are brothers that at some point are more likely to have been Black nationalists at some level or another. You wanted a Black family, you wanted a secure household, you wanted to raise children with your value systems. A lot of brothers like that are the ones that are dealing with these kind of court issues, or the ones that they're not able to see their kids. These are the kind of issues that I want us to be able to respond to, beyond just shows on YouTube where we don't like something, but mobilizing our voices and starting to apply it in a certain way. And I'll give you an example. Not only did I recently tell you guys, that I had spoken with a politician in Maryland, and I'm starting to see policies in Tennessee and Texas that are starting to move in accordance with what the manosphere has been talking about, or at least elements of it, in regard to the kind of policies we want to see. I just did a federal deposition where as an expert witness, I weighed in on the impact of stereotypes about Black men and how those are often weaponized against us with false charges of abuse and situations like that. So that whole narrative, that whole historical piece that I did in the deposition is now part of the court record, right? It's in a federal case. The case hasn't closed yet, but when it's completed, that is going to be part of a precedent that can be used by other brothers who are arguing something similar. Now they can actually take testimony and use it. See, that's why I'm saying we need to do this. Here's another example. And this is a lower level, but I think it's still applicable. I did a show last year, I think it was, on Black male homelessness. And I identified a particular article, and I didn't know about the author, but I addressed the article. And the article itself was entitled "A Sea of Black Men's Faces, LA's Black Homelessness Crisis." Right. One of the things I pointed out in the article was that even though the title addressed Black men, the majority of the article just talked about Black people and Black people being homeless. Right. So I commented on that, and I said, no, we need to actually start breaking up the data and disaggregate it and look at race and gender. So the author of the article wrote me. And at first he seemed a little frustrated, because what I found was he was actually a Black male homeless person that is now writing about this. But his words were to me that because he had seen so many Black male homeless, he thought it was something everybody knew. So it didn't drive him to write in the article Black male beyond the title, because he thought everybody knew. He didn't think it was anything special. So this is the email he sent me today. He says, "I enjoyed your analysis. It reminded me that we all have blind spots. I think because I know the numbers, it seemed obvious to me that Black men were disproportionately affected when I wrote about Black people. Your analysis made me realize I should be more intentional about that going forward and not assume everyone else will know what I know. I will definitely keep you in mind as an expert source in the future. And then when I asked him, did he see any urgency about reporting on black male homeless? I don't know what that noise is.
That's me. Hold on, somebody outside.
All right, mute that for me. Okay. So when I asked him, did he see any urgency around reporting on black male homelessness? He says, I haven't seen any urgency around reporting on it. He said, but maybe more people will pay attention now that the story was announced Friday as a finalist for the LA Press Club's 65th SoCal Journalism Awards in the local political government reporting category. It says winners are announced next month at the ceremony. So in other words, his article is possibly going to win an award, but he himself as a journalist is now recognizing something that we're talking about in this space that others aren't thinking about. And he himself, as a formerly homeless black male, didn't know was an issue that needed to be highlighted in a certain way. So now he's talking about shifting the way he reports on this in relation to what we're talking about. So, you know, we don't always have grand gestures where the president of the United States or the president of what other country comes and says, I watched your blog and I'm going to change all the policies in the land because of what you said. It doesn't, it's not that dramatic, and nothing really is. But the reality is when you start moving the needle and you start to see traction, you got to go with what's happening. And these are the things I'm observing. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. So you aided in Maryland Senate Bill 410?
I didn't aid it. Well, we talked about it, and he contacted me and Dennis Sperling to ask for our insight. And from there, he told us he's going to reach back out, but they're also reviewing the black male political agenda. You know, Dennis has done shows about various topics. I think people would be amazed at how many folks listen from the clouds.
Yep.
But when you think about it, how many politicians are going to come out and say, well, you know, I listened to this blogger on YouTube and the Manosphere, and I mean his opponents, I got almost 500 videos. His opponents would literally sift through those videos and find whatever salaciousness they could find to use against him. Right. Exactly. This is something I just saw with Dr. Ronald Neal. He did a show on P. Diddy's channel where he was talking about Kevin Samuels. And not only did he tell me that they highly edited his comments, but when they showed clips of Samuels, they cherry picked what they knew would incense black women.
Right.
So that's how that works. So you're not going to get politicians that are going to, get up and espouse how much they love your channel. That's not how it works. They're going to take what you say, and if there's traction behind it, if there's something they can use and it taps into their demographic in their environment that would support it. But again, how much of that can happen if the conversations aren't happening? And I'm seeing a time period in my life I never thought I'd see, where black men are comparing notes in a public space and beginning to move on ideas, even though it's still very early, it's very nascent, but it's something I've never seen in my lifetime. And I'm seeing people respond to it. And yet other black men coming in to tell you ain't doing shit is the first thing I hear. But I'm just like,
yeah, that's what we hear most.
You got to start somewhere,
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I look at it as ripples in the pond. That's all I look at it as. It's like, even no matter how big or small your voice is, if you're putting it out there where other people can hear it or see it or even look at it and say, well, that's similar to a story that I have that may have happened to me. It's out there. It's all ripples on the pond. It's going somewhere. It's going somewhere. I can't see all this movement that's going on around black men and what black men want politically and stuff like that. I can't look at that and not see what was happening around that last election, where everybody was looking at them black male numbers and saw that black males was like, no, you're going to lose all of our votes. I can't see that and not understand that the black manosphere had an effect on that. Ice Cube had an effect on that. How these women was acting all out and dancing on people's graves and everything else was having an impact on that. And then those polling numbers showed up, and how they really paying attention. Like, we got to talk to them a little bit. Maybe we need to go into a barbershop or something.
See, the potential for this space the potential for this space is untapped. We don't all have to say we're going to join the same political party. We could literally treat it on a vote by vote basis. Can we actually decide as a group of men with shared interests what our particular vote will be on a given issue and decide whether or not we're going to vote? If you can make those decisions as a group, that's when you begin to mobilize.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then you have people respond to that mobilization, but we get caught up in what various religious groups we're a part of, what our ideologies are, what political group are you aligned with. And I'm saying, if that's the only method we use, we're never going to get anywhere. That's one of the reasons that's why you don't see me delve into that. Because if I say, well, this is the right religion or this is the right political group, it's just going to be a war. But if I say, if we have shared interests, what kind of platform can we build? What kind of approach can we have where we share an outlook, even though we may differ on everything else? Can we figure that much out?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question. But any closing comments from either one of you?
Yeah. I posted some links in the back chat.
Okay. You want me to share them, or is that?
Oh, you can share them if you want.
Okay.
One of them, because I want to go back to the abusive litigation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a case here in Maryland. I don't know if y'all heard about the Gynarchy v. Gynarchy case. Okay, in the Gynarchy v. Gynarchy case, if you want the case number, I can give it to you because I did have the transcript from Google Scholar, but they've since taken it down.
Oh, really? That must have been juicy.
It was really juicy. The father, the guy's name was Darrell Gynarchy. They still live in Severn, Maryland. And the mother's name was Amani Gynarchy. And she hit him with the same things that I got hit with. He was basically molesting his two daughters. This went on for 9 years until the courts got tired of her and then fined her $852,000 and put her in jail.
Damn.
She lost custody of the children. However, before that 8 years was up, this man had lost everything. So when brothers, when you're doing this fight, understand this is a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be over in a few short years.
Mm-hmm.
No, we are talking about a decade and then some.
But this is why I want to see brothers operationalize the space more, where we're actually sharing strategies, where we're actually giving each other consult, giving each other contacts. That's what, to me, the potential of this space is. Not having fucking 4 months of conversations about goddamn pearly things. I'm like, you can use this space to do so much more.
So much more.
Argue about bullshit. And that's one of the reasons I think we keep getting hit with these distracting kinds of, notions that are supposed to take everybody's attention. Because if you actually tapped into the potential of how you can use this space, I mean, think about it. There's been no significant movement prior to this era that has been able to take advantage of the internet, social media, to the extent that we can. And we've seen movements change the world throughout history. But now we're in a space where you can actually get on your damn phone and communicate with somebody. You can record a video sitting in your car that someone in South Africa is watching live. Yep. You're telling me the best we can do with it is argue over a white woman? Really? That's it?
A white woman in a 10-second soundbite.
You know what I mean? Anyway, so all I'm saying is we really need to, I think, mature how we take advantage of the resources that are already available to us, and for the most part are relatively free. Really. I mean, you all literally paid for my channel. Every piece of equipment in here, I only bought because the people who were watching contributed. Mm-hmm. This isn't, so I'm saying that to say I didn't have to come out of pocket and save a bunch of money to buy a microphone and a camera and get. You got brothers that are sitting in their car with their phone. Just that's their show. You know what I mean? So we're in an era where this stuff is accessible in a manner that has never been the case before. I mean, y'all grew up with me in the 70s and 80s. What would it have taken for you to have your own damn channel?
Dude, it'd have been like starting a rap game. You would have had to hustle to get the money together to buy the equipment, to have a studio. It'd have been like some old days, like, we record in the bathroom and we put, old blankets and mattresses up on the walls for soundproofing. Like, it would have been really, really grunge, like really ghetto.
I mean, shoot, we all know how BET looked when it first came out. It was ghetto as hell.
One of the assignments I had my students do this semester is to research various independent Black channels on YouTube. And I'm finding cats who are under 22 years old with millions of subscribers, and they're literally sitting in front of a computer at a desk nothing on the wall behind them. That's it. You know, you got people filming shows laying in bed with millions of subscribers.
Yep.
And I think the lead attorney put it well once. He said when he got to 20,000 subscribers, he was making $10,000 a month.
Yep.
So what happens when you got 4 million subscribers? You know what I mean? The potential. Exactly. So I'm just saying, look, we need to operationalize this space differently. And as far as I'm concerned, if we can focus on the things that we have a shared, kind of approach about, things we take issue with. I'm not saying I have all the answers. What I'm saying is I'd like to have the conversation and we decide how to operationalize this technology to our benefit and create a shared outlook. It doesn't have to take a lot. It just has to take us making the decision to do it. So I want to thank both of y'all for coming up, especially on short notice. I appreciate it. And on Mother's Day, on top of all of that. Thank you both.
Don't get me started on Mother's Day, bro.
Yeah,
I'm just going to keep it brief, but I don't think we should be celebrating things that we do intrinsically. That's like National Breathing Day.
Which has never been. Never had a holiday.
Yeah.
Right?
And that same goes for Father's Day too. So I'm not discriminating. Why do we need a Father's Day? We're supposed to be fathers. Come on, man.
Well, somebody got to
celebrate it anyway. Right?
Somebody got to spend that change in the ashtray in the car for Father's Day. So
somebody need a tie, right?
Oh no, I saw your post on Facebook, Dr. T. I saw what those chicks were saying.
Oh,
I think these dad beats. I was like, oh man.
I'm gonna get to that in another show. I gotta hit that up. Some of the vitriol every year on Father's Day has just gotten so bad, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not even looking forward to it this year either. I'm not.
It's already started. But
yeah, I know. I know. That's why I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, y'all make sure you support Artisan MC, support Deadset Anime, support their channel, subscribe to both if you haven't. Do you guys want to tell them about anything upcoming they should know about?
That's it.
I'm still working on my short film treatments now that I got some time. So I don't know when, because I've been posting mostly just little training videos here and there. But as you know, my main goal is to produce animation. So it's going to be familiar to people. And one of the things I want to say is don't get pissed off, because I'm not crapping on old characters, but you will have to watch it to, see where I'm going with it.
All right. So Artisan next Sunday?
Next Sunday, I think we got Fast X coming out this week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go see that. Yeah, I'm gonna go see that. I'll have a reaction, possibly a review. Still got a bunch of reviews I have to do because I just got back into the on-call rotation, so I'll spend a lot more time at work and whatnot. But I'll try to get those out. No, it's not timely, but then again, y'all don't pay me to do these motherfuckers either. So spending my time and my money to do it. So I will get it up as soon as I can. But other than that, keep supporting these brothers in this space, because no matter how big or small the channel is, that their voices are needed. This is the time where you can actually get your voice out there and be heard about whatever you dealing with, going through or whatever, and you need to utilize this space better. This is one of the things I agree with Grinch on mostly. Y'all be using this space for the wrong BS. You need to network and try to help each other. That's why you're here. Absolutely. Not to just be fussing about what women doing. Who cares? Yeah. We all got that conversation.
Strategize to improve the quality of life for Black boys and men. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
But y'all take it light. I appreciate it. And I will holler at y'all soon, man. Let me go ahead and let y'all down.
All right.
Thank you again. Oh, my bad, Artisan. Sorry about that. Go ahead and.
No, you good. You good. No, I just said thank you, Dr. B. That's it.
Thank you. All right. So y'all have a good one. Appreciate the support. Give us your thoughts about judicial exploitation, about what experiences you might have had, what suggestions you have, especially in terms of how we can add it to the Black male political agenda. But let us know. I want to hear your thoughts. Please take advantage of the comment section. Y'all have a good one. Holler at you soon.